have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Ben Leo. Tonight. They heckled him in Parliament, didn't they? But is the truth that Labour are now completely rattled by Reform UK?
I mean, let's not get too carried away about Nigel Farage. Guy gets so much airtime. He got 5 MPs at the last election, and he doesn't shine in the House of Commons.
He thinks they're irrelevant, so why have Labour been pumping out anti-migration adverts all across the red wall in the same colours, look at this, as Reform UK?
I believe it's a free world. It's not, but it should be. You should be able to go wherever you want, but I think it should be done in the right way. In my belief, and I'm not being racist at all, you think of your own before you think of others. I mean, that's just common sense.
And I've been out and about in this week's episode of Leo Unleashed. Find out which town I visited very shortly. I'll give you a clue. It's home to the Mars Bar. And what's Hamza Yusuf banging on about here?
Muslims are taking over the UK.
Joining me on my panel tonight is former Met Police Detective Peter Blexley, the journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, and the former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards. Big show coming up, including all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages on the way. First, though, your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Ben, thank you very much and good evening to you. It's just after 9 o'clock. The top story tonight, well, Health Minister Andrew Gwynne has apologised after being sacked by Sir Keir Starmer over what he described as badly misjudged WhatsApp messages. The Labour MP for Gorton and Denton is accused of insulting constituents and colleagues in a group chat, reportedly saying he hoped a 72-year-old woman would soon be dead. Gwynne says he understands the decision and will support Labour despite being suspended. The party says it's investigating and will take swift action if it finds rules were breached. The parents of 2 girls killed in the Southport knife attack say they are trying to find light in the dark, speaking publicly for the first time since the tragedy. They've described their daughters, Bibi and Elsie, as confident, happy and affectionate, and said the killer's sentencing should not have been televised. Axel Rudikabana was handed a life sentence with a 52-year minimum term, one of the highest ever recorded. The families say they want the girls to be remembered for their personalities, not the details of the crime. They've also welcomed a public inquiry into the attack. In other news, clashes have broken out today between police and protesters at a demonstration against plans for a massive new Chinese embassy near the Tower of London. Scuffles saw police wrestling protesters dressed in black, with officers retreating as masked demonstrators linked arms and moved towards them. 2 people were arrested today for breaching public order conditions. And former Security Minister Tom Tugendhat called the development of that embassy a grave mistake, accusing the Labour government of ignoring lessons from the past decade. The family of released hostage Eli Sharabi say they are relieved he is free, but left heartbroken at how frail he looks. They described him as confident, confused, gaunt and missing the spark in his eyes. His wife and 2 daughters were killed by Hamas militants during the October the 7th attack. He was paraded by gunmen in Gaza alongside 2 other captives in a televised event condemned by Israel. Meanwhile, all 183 Palestinian prisoners due to be released in an exchange have now been freed today. That process is, of course, part of the first stage of a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas that started on the 19th of January. The parents of a 15-year-old schoolboy stabbed to death in Sheffield have been leading a march today in his memory. Caroline and Mark Wilgoose walked with hundreds of through the city, holding banners and calling for an end to knife crime. Earlier, a mass was held in Sheffield to remember Harvey, and the vicar at St Joseph's Catholic Church spoke to our GB News reporter, Anna Riley.
It was a very moving service. Sometimes simplicity is the best, and it came across very well, and people held the family very much in their prayers. One quote I will give from the service is this, that we cannot suffer as Harvey's family are suffering, but we can suffer with them, walk with them.
Well, the Day of Remembrance culminated earlier this afternoon with fans at Sheffield United's match clapping Harvey in tribute. A boy, also aged 15, has been charged with his murder, with the trial date set for the 30th of June. And in sport, some sad news this evening. Belfast boxer John Cooney has died days after suffering a brain injury during a fight. The 28-year-old underwent surgery after his first defence of the super featherweight title was stopped in the 9th round. His family say they're devastated by the loss of a much-loved son and brother and partner. They've also thanked hospital staff for their tireless efforts to save him. Cooney's promoter, Mark Dunlop, says he's battled for his life a week before passing away. That's the latest from the GB Newsroom for now. I'll be back with you for a full roundup at 10 o'clock. Now, though, it's over to Ben.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Very good evening to you. Hope you're well. Thank you for your company tonight. Now, this isn't a game show, but I have two big questions tonight. One, is there a crisis at the heart of government? And are Labour rattled by Reform UK? Because tonight, just breaking in the last few hours, we've seen the sacking of Health Minister Andrew Gwynn after he was exposed, amongst other filth, of saying he hopes an elderly pensioner died because she dared to ask him about bin collections. This week, we've also had emergency cabinet meetings in secret locations, plunging approval ratings and the economy running on fumes. Talking of which, I wonder how Rachel Reeves reacted to that Bank of England forecast that slashed growth in half.
For God's sake! For God's sake! For God's sake! For God's sake!
I'm sorry, I had to. It was worth it. Everything right now points to chaos in this government, not least devastating polls showing Labour in disarray. Reform UK topped a YouGov poll for the first time this week with 25% of the vote, pipping Labour and the Tories by 1% and 4% respectively. Then we had this absolute bombshell yesterday from MRP, a so-called mega poll of 5,700 people that put Reform UK absolutely top of the pile yet again, picking up 175 seats that would probably see them form a coalition with the Tories, who are on 178. And that's an idea I imagine Reform would scoff at. Right now, anyway. So bear those polls in mind when we're looking at what's been happening in the Labour trenches recently. We had what looks like a coordinated attack on Reform UK and Nigel Farage, particularly on one issue, the NHS.
The crux of Farage's argument is this: what was possible in the 20th century isn't possible in the 21st. It's a miserabilist, declinist vision for Britain's future. People shouldn't have to choose between a health service that treats them on time and an NHS free at the point of use. That's a poverty of ambition for our country, and Labour utterly rejects it.
Even when Nigel Farage tried asking a question about a war hero in PMQs on Wednesday, he was drowned out by, again, seemingly coordinated Labour heckling. Farage then accused Labour of panicking. Interesting. Not very respectful, you'd say, for an MP in Parliament. And this is Farage's response.
Appears to be some panic on that side of the House. I'm not surprised.
And what did the Prime Minister say? Well, surprise, surprise, he accused Reform of being not too generous with their stance on the NHS.
Mr. Speaker, he talks of panic. The only panic is people using the NHS who know that under his policy he wants to charge them for using the NHS. And what he should say to the people of Clacton when he finally finds Clacton is that they should vote Labour because we're stabilising the economy and boosting the Dems.
We later had accusations that Labour is producing a secret anti-reform database in a bid to undermine the party. The Sun newspaper reported that Labour Together, the think tank headed by former MP Jonathan Ashworth, was plotting to turn the party against Reform UK instead of, crucially, the official opposition, the Tories. Then we come to today. It was meant to be embargoed, but the Times newspaper revealed this morning that the government will release an absolute trove of videos on Monday boasting about their deportations of illegal migrants since taking power in July last year. Around 16,000, they say. The government won't give us the videos until Monday, but until then, we do have a couple of stills to share from those clips. There's one, some migrants being loaded onto coaches, and there's another of some, I assume, getting kicked out of the country. The Times reported today, I quote, Labour will publish a series of videos showing the journey of an illegal migrant from detention in early morning raids to transfer from bleak immigration removal centres to waiting planes and, subject to approval, footage aboard flights out of the country. But Labour might not just have a reform crisis on their hands, but also an identity problem too. Because in recent weeks, they've been pumping out adverts, specifically in the north of England, red wall seats, again talking about the number of migrants they've removed. Here's one that my team dug up earlier. What do you notice? Not a red Labour logo in sight. In fact, not a splash of red anywhere. Instead, we have the blue of Reform UK. So it begs the question, are Labour trying to win the hearts of voters by piggybacking on the momentum of their rivals, who, let me just again remind you, they call irrelevant? As our old friend Andrew Neil wrote in the Daily Mail today, when a party led by a man who once touted the virtues of open borders and free movement is reduced to this, it's hard not to conclude that a certain panic has set in. It might not be misplaced. So, the big question tonight, is Labour in crisis and are they rattled by Reform UK? Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards, journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, and the former Metropolitan Police Detective Peter Blexley. Good evening to you all. Welcome along. Peter, welcome to you for your first time.
Thank you for having me.
Paul, I'll start with you. Yeah. Are Labour rattled and are the government in crisis?
Crisis, no.
What crisis?
Rattled a little. I think there's a recognition there are lots of Labour MPs with reform in second place, and I think there's a recognition too that some of the messaging around the action on illegal migration isn't getting through, and there's a sense that reform has to be taken seriously. I've been saying this since the election in July, but it's certainly true that it needs to be taken on. I
think your mic's a bit dodgy. We'll fix that, and in the meantime, we'll go to Peter. Peter, what's your thoughts? Labour should be, I argue, should be focusing on improving the country because the first 6 or 7 months has been a bit lacklustre, to say the least. But it seems they've got their attention turned behind their shoulder, focusing on Reform, who they take the mickey out of for having just 5 MPs.
Ben, you're being uncharacteristically generous by using the word lacklustre. I think they've had a catastrophic start to this government. There was Starmer and all his frontbenchers elected on a platform of change. Change, change, change. It was on every hoarding and every lectern that he spoke from. And what kind of change have we got? Starmer has proven himself to be a freeloading scrounger, wearing clothes and spectacles bought by some rich benefactor. The government has lurched from one crisis to another. It seems to be adrift, directionless, and kind of bobbing around in a never-ending storm. There has been no change.
What about Reform UK then? There's 2 polls recently. One from YouGov, one the MRP poll yesterday. Are they to be believed? I've always been a big critic of polls. I always go back to 2016 in the USA, for example, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Brexit, they got that wrong as well. Do we believe these polls?
Polling is an ever-evolving science, and I think we've had very accurate pollsters in recent times, and those that have surprised us because they've been hugely inaccurate.
The thing about
let's
polling...
just take them as they have appeared this week. Let's take them at face value. And if they are to be believed, then the inexorable rise and popularity of Reform is staggering, and I should think it's got both what previously were the 2 parties, the 2 major parties, rattled.
OK, Paul, let's just check your mic.
Is this thing on, as they say in the Catskills? Are we on?
Are we good with Paul? I think we are. Yeah, so
well,
is there a crisis? You said there's no crisis.
There isn't a crisis. Just on the polling, polls are a snapshot of opinion. They're not a predictor of the future. So you can't say this poll says that there's going to be X number of Reform MPs after the election. I think faced with an election in 4 years' time and faced with either Labour or Kemi Badenoch, I think people will, make their minds up on that choice.
But, Paul, you know as well as I do that if the polls were going your way, you'd say it was significant. Because the poll is not going your way.
No, I'd never say that, really. And I think in terms of crisis, there is no crisis. But I do think there is the recognition that reform has to be taken terribly seriously.
Why
are
they having secret cabinet meetings, undisclosed locations? I mean, what's that about?
Well, they're not that secret if we're talking about them. But, I mean, I think there are political opponents of the Labour Party. They need to be taken on, and that's what Wes has talked about and what this database is all about. He's quite right.
This is what I discovered. This is just an anecdotal little tale. I went to my local pub, the Prince of Wales, last night, sat down with my daughter, had a glass of wine, started chatting to a local, gathered a little crowd around, and they found out, because one of them recognised I did some stuff at GBNews. I asked them, who are you voting for in the next election? That is about 15 people around me in this pub.
Yeah.
All of them voting, they said, for reform.
For me, that's more... When you go out and about and you speak to people in pubs and...
That
whoever,
really counts.
That counts. Paul, can I ask you why Labour are nicking Reform UK branding, the blue?
I think 2 reasons. One is that the message isn't getting through, so I think people are kind of being more receptive to that, and they'll see the actual facts around the numbers of deportations at record levels. The other, I think, that with the videos we'll see on Monday, is to stop people getting on the boats in the first place, and showing that if you do turn up, the likelihood is you'll be turned away.
That won't work.
Well, we'll see.
The use of this phrase, record levels of deportation, record levels of spending, it's an utter nonsense, and it fools no one, because if I give my kid £9 pocket money this week and I give them 10 quid the next week, that's a record level for them. And that's... so it's...
Anyway, nothing has the imperative of the boat actually hitting the shoreline with these men coming over sometimes into people's back gardens on the south coast.
I've just
391 this week.
Some breaking news.
What a joke. Oh, we've got some breaking news, actually. Talking of reform and polling, an opinion poll for The Observer, which is the Sunday version of The Guardian, but, a lefty newspaper, to be generous, tomorrow shows that Labour, in this brand-new poll, would be on 27%, Reform UK on 26%, so pretty much neck and neck, and the Tories, this is significant, way down on 22%. So just to reiterate, Labour on 27, Reform on 26, and the Tories on 22. The Liberal Democrats on 11 and the Greens on 8. So, Paul, it seems here, Reform and Labour neck and neck, the Tories are the ones that are losing ground.
Well, it shows Labour as ahead, first of all, after all of the mess and all the noise and all the sort of attacks on the party. Labour is still ahead in the polls. It does show, though, that opinion is split 3 ways in this country at the moment. If you were Ed Davey, you'd be a bit disappointed, I suppose, that the party that you had got 70-odd MPs, biggest result ever for them, and they're down on 11. But it does show the country is in a state of flux, and politics is in flux.
What you get when you go out and you actually talk to people out in the street is that they're not so much thinking about reform and thinking of voting for reform. They are disillusioned by a two-party system. That's what's happening here, and they want an alternative. And if you don't pay attention to it and you just say, well, that's a poll, they don't really count, the only one that counts is the general election.
We're not paying attention to it. I mean, the videos about migration show, we're addressing that particular issue because we know it's a concern.
But as Andrew Neil said in his Mail column, he said this is from a man, Sir Keir Starmer, who virtued open borders, who boasted about humanitarian rights, and he's the Davos man, isn't he? By his own admission, he's the Davos man. Yeah. He loves open borders, and yet now he's trying to play the chameleon and pump out videos of immigration raids and pump out propaganda in the north and red wall seats of reform-branded adverts.
Well, I don't know about that, but I mean, I think the open borders are over the last 14 years. That's got us into this mess, and I think Labour's now trying to do something about it.
I mean, I would go as far as suggesting Labour, whoever pumping these adverts out, these reform-branded adverts, think the electorate are a bit thick, to be honest.
Yeah,
he's fooling no one.
Starmer
is fooling no one. Deep in the heart of the left-leaning politicians of this country who hold up signs saying refugees welcome and all of that, is the often mythical phrase that we all live in this wonderful, integrated, kind of multicultural land, when in fact there is a staggering lack of integration. But the left are pro. I know the Tories, of course, had a shocking record on immigration, but the natural default position of this government and the left is not to round up tens upon thousands of people who should not be here and get them out, which is what needs to happen.
Peter, lastly, just briefly, what do you make of the Tories in this opinion poll tomorrow in The Observer being so far behind Labour and Reform?
Kemi Badenoch is the most uninspiring political leader I have come across in a very long time, and it surprised me not one jot.
OK. Well, I would, in her defence, in Kemi's defence, I'd say she's only been in the job, I think it's 100 days on Monday, actually. I remember seeing it's 100 days on Monday. She's been very cautious with her policies. She says there's time, you know,
I don't really understand that. I don't understand why she's been so cautious. That is a problem for her. She needed to grip the situation and push ahead. She's very, very, very... She's an Olympic-level debater when she chooses to confront situations, but she's not.
Yeah. Last word, Paul, on Kemi and the Tories?
She's terrible on PMQs, and there's one way that we judge our leaders, is can you go to that chamber and boss it, and she can't.
Well, she has been lately.
She lost badly on Wednesday, which had an open goal.
There were a few open goals for her to hit, and she didn't take it. But, yeah, there's plenty of time. As you said, Paul, there's 3 odd years to go.
Afraid so.
So, there we go. Right, we move on. Fancy your chance to be one of the lucky, well, 2 lucky winners, in fact, winners in the latest Great British Giveaway. We have 2 massive prize bundles to be won. Here's all the details you need to win. OK, very good luck to you on that. Up next, Britain's universities could soon face research budget cuts unless they can prove they're ticking the right diversity boxes and inclusion boxes. DEI gone mad. Isn't it funny how in the US, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they're taking a flamethrower to DEI and all that nonsense? Over here, it seems we're doubling down. So the big question tonight, is university now a detriment to youngsters? This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Newly released MI5 files reveal that Queen Elizabeth II was kept in the dark over the treachery of a senior courtier.
Yeah, for almost a decade. This is Sir Anthony Blunt, who played a double life, passing intelligence, the KGB, during World War II as a senior MI5 officer. But, remarkably, he was allowed to keep his position amid fears of a major scandal if the truth came out.
Well, now those files have been released by the National Archives, which includes the Queen's response to finding out a trusted member like Anthony Blunt was really a traitor.
Well, joining us now in the studio is GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker. Good to see you this morning, Cameron. This is astonishing.
Oh, absolutely. And this wasn't a little spy. This was Anthony Blunt was a full-blown spy. He passed to the Soviets the D-Day deception plans during the Second World War. He was working for MI5, but a double agent for the KGB as well.
The wrong plans.
He passed on the plans.
The wrong ones.
The wrong one in 1944. Yeah. Exactly. But he then got a job inside Buckingham Palace as one of the Queen's most trusted aides and courtiers, the surveyor of her art, essentially like kind of an art advisor for Her late Majesty. There was always suspicions about Anthony Blunt way back in the early 50s because he was part of this notorious Cambridge spy ring, a group of 5 boys recruited at Cambridge. 2 of these people fled to Moscow in 1951. Anthony stayed behind in London and subsequently got a job inside Buckingham Palace. And it wasn't until 1964 that he confessed to his treachery. The reason he confessed was because he was granted immunity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying. That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. Now, it looks like Britain's universities could soon face research budget cuts. That's unless they can prove they're ticking the right boxes when it comes to diversity and inclusion. A new funding shake-up means institutions will need to show they're tackling inequalities, monitoring diversity stats and giving special recognition to DEI initiatives. Critics warn it's yet another push for ideological conformity at the expense of academic excellence. With funding decisions, there's around £2 billion in the funding pot, prioritising diversity targets over merit. So we're joined now by author of Understanding Apprenticeships, Ben Rowland, and Lucy Marsh from Family Education Trust. Good evening to you both. Ben, can I start with you? What do you make of this? It seems that they're focusing really on skin colour and background and your sex and who you want to sleep with over academic excellence.
I think the key thing with any educational institution is that they've got to focus on what they're doing for the young people who are, in the case of universities, paying a lot of money for their undergraduate courses. That's the thing first and foremost they have to focus on. To be honest, I'm not. If they need to do, if they need to pay some attention to making sure that they are, taking full attention, paying full attention to how well they deal with all the different people who come with. I don't mind about the, some of that stuff around diversity and inclusion. What I mind about is, are they actually focusing on what the good outcomes are for the people who come to those institutions? And I sometimes think that they aren't focused on that. They're focused on what's good for them as institutions in the first place. That's the thing I'd like to focus.
I guess, Ben, my issue with it is that they focus on DEI, which always tends to be people from a BAME background, black, Asian, ethnic minorities. In actual fact, the truth is the most underprivileged and behind sector of people in the UK right now when it comes to education is white working class boys predominantly. Lucy, if I could just bring you in, do you think, as some people suggest, university these days is more of a detriment to careers than say, going towards an apprenticeship, which Ben would push?
Well, I don't think the university education in itself is detrimental to young people. I think that this push towards all the universities pursuing a woke ideology is a problem, and that is going to be putting off parents from wanting to send their children to university because they don't want them to be groomed and indoctrinated into a woke ideology. That's not what young people go to university for. They go to university to get an excellent education, first and foremost, and to be exposed to new ideas and to debate academic freedom. And it seems to me that this push towards equality and diversity and inclusion in research is basically dumbing down research excellence, which is what British universities are known for, and it's going to curtail academic freedom in this push to focus on this ideological content.
Ben, I think that would be my concern as a parent as well. I just think going out in the workplace, getting 2 or 3 or even 4 years head start against your peers in your age group and getting on-the-job experience is far more beneficial than going to, a far-left university. And let's be frank now, most university campuses are far-left. Getting indoctrinated with Marxism and all this woke nonsense and then coming out and starting on a very low salary. It just seems completely pointless to me. Can you try and make the case to me as to why you would send a child to university today?
Well, look, I'm a huge fan of apprenticeships. Everyone who knows me knows that. I think that far too many kids are being pushed towards university. I think there is a place for university. I think there are some courses, there are some so there's some students, there are some courses where it makes sense for them to go and learn that. But the key thing is, of course, as you're saying, is that ideology shouldn't be part of that. People should be free to, when they go to university, to debate, to have different views, to learn, to challenge, to not be afraid of expressing their views and having their views challenged in both ways. I mean, I do think it is a real worry that people go to university and they're not allowed to speak their mind. They need to be respectful. That's one thing. The second thing is university the right thing for young people to go towards? Given that it costs, on average 60 grand plus 10 grand from parents chipping in to support their kids at university, when, as you say, actually there are better ways to get a start in life that don't require that. So I think we've got two arguments here. One is, what should universities be like? I think it should be absolutely open, encourage debate, be open. And the second thing is, what's the best route to get you started? And for a lot of young people, going to university is not the right route.
Lucy, last word to you. Is it too late to save universities? I know it's a bit of a broad and deep question, but are our universities and campuses just so indoctrinated and so entrenched with this left-leaning ideology? I mean, it's far left, I'll say it, it's far left.
Well, I don't think it's too late. You only need to look across as to what's happening in America, that you've got Trump has come in and made all of these, the executive orders to actually stop this. And we need somebody like that over here to actually stop this from happening, because we need to stop young people from being indoctrinated and groomed at university. That's not what they're for.
OK, great point. Lucy Marsh, thank you very much, from the Family Education Trust, and Ben Rowland, author of Understanding Apprenticeships. Really appreciate your company. Thank you. Just a quick right of reply. Rebecca Fairbairn, who's the director of the REF, which is the government quango which dishes out the university funding. She says EDI statistics, which universities already have to collect, are still a small part of the overall assessment process, which is designed to give a much broader picture of the research base within a university. The aim is to change the narrow focus in the current REF on published output to look across the system at how you promote excellence using a much wider set of indicators. It goes on. While people may feel nervous, or our intention is not to be prescriptive or impose a new system, we're working with the sector to create a framework that supports excellence across the broad range of high-quality work being carried out in British universities. No, me neither. Right, coming up, another Labour Party row is brewing as Dudley councillor Steve Edwards, and he joins me next. He's been expelled. He's been booted out of Sir Keir Starmer's party after accusing him of lying to the British public and abandoning the working class. This is explosive, but I guess hardly not surprising. He joins me next. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're looking for some winter sun, Spain wouldn't be a bad shout. Fine, at least for Sunday. Unsettled in Italy and reasonably breezy in Greece. We've seen that quite frequently recently, and with some showers to boot. But across Italy, well, that's where some more unsettled weather is heading, especially in the west, the north, and then Sicily through Sunday and into Monday. Iberia, fine for now, but it will turn more showery from the west as the week begins.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. The cloud that we've had around throughout Saturday is going to be staying with us into Sunday as well, particularly across central areas of the UK, Northern Ireland, into parts of England and Wales. We'll continue to see outbreaks of rain and drizzle this evening and overnight. For the far north and south, though, we will start to see some clearer spells emerging, and underneath those clear skies, temperatures will drop off quite a touch, as low as -7 degrees Celsius for some rural parts of Scotland. This will be accompanied by some freezing fog patches, maybe also some icy stretches where surfaces are still wet, particularly if left untreated. Despite the very cold start to the day in Scotland, though, it is going to be a very sunny one here once the fog does eventually clear its way off, and we'll hold on to the sunshine right throughout the day. For Northern Ireland, then, into those central areas of England and Wales, it's going to be dull, drab and dreary, unfortunately. Further outbreaks of drizzle to contend with. But for the far south of England, we're starting the day off with something a touch brighter here. The cloud will tend to build from the east throughout the day, so we're going to be left with the fringes of parts of Pembrokeshire, West Wales and down towards Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly that will hold on to the sunshine the longest, whereas further rain pushes into southeastern England later on. with the cloud around, it is going to be another rather cold day, particularly once you factor in the easterly wind that's going to start building once again. So it's going to be feeling colder than these temperatures necessarily show on the chart. And that easterly wind is something that will hold on into the new working week as well. High pressure stays in control across Scandinavia, allowing that easterly wind to push its way in, and that is going to add a wind chill factor on top of the already cold conditions. Further showers pushing in from the North Sea with an extensive area of cloud. Those showers will be wintry over higher ground areas as well. It's a scenario that we're going to have to get used to because it is expected to stay very similar throughout the forthcoming week. Cloudy for the vast majority of us, and temperatures still slightly below average for the time of year. Bye-bye. Enjoy your evening.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. In just a short while, I'm going to show you the front page of tomorrow's Mail on Sunday. There's two big stories on there. The first is this Labour minister that's just been sacked for really despicable comments that have been unearthed in WhatsApp. The second is a massive royal exclusive, which we will share the details on very shortly. Basically, if you're wondering whether Donald Trump was going to kick Prince Harry out of the US and send him packing back to Windsor, we have an answer. I won't tell you what it is. Hang tight, and we will reveal all. Now, though, we move on because turmoil in the Labour Party continues as Dudley councillor Steve Edwards has been expelled after attacking Sir Keir Starmer, accusing the Prime Minister of lying to the British public and abandoning the working class. Councillor Edwards, who represented Brockmore and Pensnet, wrote to Starmer urging more support for ordinary people. And get this, just days later, he was unceremoniously booted out of the party. He was expelled. He says, quote, Starmer promised lower energy bills, support for pensioners and no tax rises. And then he backtracked. He's turned his back on the working class. Labour refuses to comment on this situation, on this case, but they insist Keir Starmer wasn't personally involved. Local Labour leader Pete Lowe calls it a sad loss. And Edwards will now sit in as an independent on the council, shifting Dudley's political landscape. So with Labour already losing ground locally, could this spell trouble ahead? Well, I'm delighted now to be joined by the man himself, Steve Edwards. Steve, good evening. Thanks for joining me.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
Good, thank you. Thank you for your company. What happened? Just talk us through it. You wrote a letter, did you? How did you first display and express your criticism of Keir Starmer? And then what happened in response?
So, I mean, I've been critical of Keir Starmer for many months now, obviously, with the winter fuel allowance and stuff being taken away from pensioners who have got next to nothing. You know, I think the cut-off point was about £11,000 income, which we can't expect anybody to live on £11,000. In fact, the minimum wage by the government states that we can't expect anybody to live on £11,000. So, obviously, I voiced my displeasure with that. And I had a little bit of a telling off from the regional party saying I shouldn't be trying to embarrass the government, where I said, look, it's the government that are embarrassing me, not me embarrassing the government.
How did you do it, Steve? Was it on Facebook or did you write a letter? How did you do it?
So, yeah, I put a post on Facebook and then what happened was we had a by-election in our ward in December and Brockmore and Pensnet was one of the safest wards in Dudley Borough. So we returned 3 Labour MPs with a massive majority just in May this year. Then come December, we had to have a by-election for various reasons. We come third behind the Conservatives who came first and Reform who came second. Everybody on the doorstep was saying to me, look, we're going to vote Reform, like that's the way we're all going now. So obviously it was Labour voters going that way. Once we lost that election, I voiced my concerns on Facebook, which went viral. I think I had a friend phone me up saying they read it in the New York Times kind of thing. So it had gone all around the world and all around the country. Actually, I think you guys wanted to interview me at the time, but I voiced my opinion. I was like, I'm just going to leave it now. But as things have just gone on, it's just got worse.
the government's got worse, you mean, Labour?
Yeah, and Starmer's got worse. I mean, we've seen today with Andrew Gwynn getting sacked. You know, I think they've got rid of him as if he's the problem. Well, actually, he's the creme de la creme for the Labour Party. You know, he's rose to the top because he's Starmer's man kind of thing. We can't look at...
Sorry, go on. No, sorry.
You can't look at people like Andrew Gwynn and what he's saying with the racism he's putting out, and saying he wants old age pensioners to die before they can vote again. When what did Starmer think taking the winter fuel allowance away from old age pensioners is going to do?
So you went on. You expressed your dissatisfaction with the way things were going. You then had a warning from your local party chairman, was it, saying don't criticise the government? You could be in trouble here. Then when did you find out you were expelled? How did that go down?
So this week on Monday, I wrote, obviously we're dealing with our own local budget in Dudley. We've been scrutinising that. And there's many problems in Dudley, which I'll put at the foot of the Conservatives and the National Conservatives. They took a lot of money from all of the boroughs across the country. So a lot of them are facing bankruptcy. But one of the things they're doing within Dudley Borough is they're putting up council tax. Now, Keir Starmer made a promise last year that council tax would definitely not be going up.
Yeah.
So, I voiced my opinion in a letter which I wrote to Keir Starmer and sent to Keir Starmer on Monday, and also emailed it to Keir Starmer, saying, look, yes, the Tories are at fault for various things, but you promised you were going to help, and you aren't helping us. So what are you going to do about it? And 4 days later, I had a letter saying my membership had been revoked.
So hang on, let me get this straight. So you emailed Keir Starmer personally, and then 4 days later, you had your Labour membership revoked. But the party, Steve, say that Keir Starmer had nothing to do with it. And I guess because it was a local issue, why would he? That's their defence. But it seems a bit coincidental, no?
It's very coincidental now. I would think, obviously, you'd think, well, the Prime Minister's got nothing to do with little issues like this. But, it goes up a chain, obviously, within the party. It goes to a regional level, then a national level. And then them going to sit off a high office. Now, whether it's him or whether it's somebody saying, look, just get rid, because this bloke's speaking up for the working class too much. We don't want people supporting the working class, so just get rid of him and shut him up. And obviously, it's had the opposite effect, because I'm sat here now on the telly.
So, Steve, you say they don't care about the working class. Who do Labour care about then?
It's another man, isn't it? It's another establishment stooge. It's another multi-millionaire who claims his dad was a toolmaker, so that makes him working class, when really they've got no understanding of what the working class is. I mean, unfortunately, within all of the parties at the minute, we're led by rich people. I mean, where are the people with the normal accents like this? Where are the people who've worked in the factories? You know what I mean? We've got to have a voice around the table, but they just want to get rid of any voice.
All right, Steve. Thank you, mate, for coming on. Really appreciate it. Labour have said, the party, they've said they don't comment on membership matters, but they made it clear, very clear, that Sir Keir Starmer wasn't involved. I have to get the thoughts now of Paul Richards, the former Labour Special Advisor, on that. You were shaking your head. You were not happy with Steve.
I mean, my first point is that Steve Edwards hasn't got the Prime Minister's personal email address. He can't send him an email. That's just nonsense.
Well,
obviously, he would have said some generic address.
Website,
so when they say Keir Starmer wasn't involved, that's absolutely right. I also assume he's going to call a by-election and resign. He's always going to take the expenses up till the next election as an independent, because the local people voted for a Labour councillor and they haven't got one now.
Well, I guess the same with Andrew Gwynn tonight, then, the Health Minister. He was been sacked for vile comments. Is he going to hold a by-election?
He may well, because he's been suspended both from the Labour Party...
Would you urge him to, the same way you just have Steve?
Yeah, I think probably that's the honourable thing to do. And the speed with which Labour acted on this is incredible. I mean, the story broke this morning and he was out by lunchtime. I mean, it's pretty, tough stuff, but just shows we don't stand any nonsense.
Yeah, but it's not just the specifics of the Steve Edwards situation. This kind of internecine fighting was a hallmark of the end of the Conservatives' tenure in government. They were infighting all the time, and that's what distressed the public. That and immigration, but the infighting was a big problem. And that was after 14 years. We're looking at it now.
It's only a Dudley councillor. It's not a cabinet minister resigning. It's only a councillor.
Councillors are very
a councillor?
You can't say only a councillor.
That's not
a household name, is he?
Hang on a minute. Only a councillor. These are the bedrocks of our democracy.
He was elected as a Labour councillor, and now he's decided to leave. So,
yeah, it's grassroots.
I think you should take that, with respect, you should take that back, disparaging local councillors like that.
No, I wasn't disparaging local councillors. Some of my best friends are councillors.
Because they're not
only a councillor.
But you were saying it's the same as the end of days when the Tories were in, and that was cabinet ministers. I'm saying that this is just somebody who's a councillor.
No. I was very close to my local association, and I know perfectly well there was so much viciousness and so much infighting, it was a problem.
Okay.
And it happened in many associations, and I'm simply saying that this has started now, and there's every chance it might be multiplied.
No.
OK, all right, we'll continue this at the top of the 10 hour. Back in just a tick, Ben Leo Unleashed. I've been in the home of the Mars Bar this week. Find out where in just a few minutes.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Jonathan, in London, we're hearing that there could be more posties from an Amazon point of view in order to limit or cut carbon emissions, but that they could put more people on foot delivering their parcels.
This is really interesting because more and more people now obviously are using Amazon and buying their shopping online or buying gifts online. And it's interesting that in London they're talking about putting their Amazon workers on foot. There are now parts of the country, I think Milton Keynes is one part of the country, where there's robots delivering parcels. Or you'll see these, well, they call them robots. You'll see these little things sort of bundling down the street.
Yes.
Sort of
robots.
Yeah, I mean, technically they are a robot, but when I think of a robot, I think of a sort of...
a humanoid robot.
Yeah, sort of humanoid thing, sort of, Lost in Space style robot. But actually, they're sort of... little sort of carriages, little
droids,
boxes.
like Star Wars droid type.
Well, they're not
thing.
even that. They're like a little sort of, like a box on wheels, delivering parcels in places like Milton Keynes and other bits of the country. So I think this is just another example of how the world is changing. Online shopping is completely changing the way in which we all live our lives, the way things.
But I think Milton Keynes lends itself to something like that. This is a newly designed town.
Yeah. Exactly, that's why they're in Milton Keynes.
And I really do think that a town like that really does lend itself towards a piece of tech like that. When I think back, our postie in Gloucestershire is a guy called Dave. He's fantastic. Everyone knows who he is. But I'm not sure that he could be replaced by one of these little droid things.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Time now for Leo Unleashed, where I drag my backside out of this studio and travel around the UK to see what life is like in your communities. What's great about where you live, what can be improved, and how is government policy affecting you? And I have plenty of fun along the way, just like I did when I visited home of the Mars Bar, Slough.
This next song is about the greatest place in the world, Slough.
What do you love about the place?
It's not too bad. It's handy for London if you want to go to London. Weatherspoon on the corner. You can't beat one of them.
Always need a spoons. This week I'm in Slough in Berkshire, recently dubbed the ugliest town in Britain. I'm not sure I quite agree with that. There's plenty to shout about here, not least it was home to Ricky Gervais's famous series, The Office. Right now we're on the Slough trading estate, which is home to the biggest concentration of UK company headquarters outside London. 17,000 people work here, more than 400 companies, the likes of McAfee, Burger King, Lego, DHL. You see some big power stations behind me pumping out all the fumes, and just behind me there is the Mars Wrigley's headquarters. The Mars Bar, of course, was first made here in Slough in 1932. We're just seeing what people enjoy about Slough, what's good about the town.
They don't enjoy at all, because nothing left in the town centre, because no shops, you know, in these days everybody fed up of this town.
We just walked past the Mars Bar factory. You know, you can smell the Mars bars being made. Figures recently compiled in the Daily Telegraph show Slough has seen a significant decline in the past 10 years. The number of vacant units in the high street in the town centre has more than doubled in a decade, according to data from consultancy firm JDM Retail. How long have you been working here with the kebab
My new shop is a maximum 9 weeks ago.
9 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay, so shops are still opening, there's businesses still opening.
But no choice in it. But this is Slough is a big town. But I need the town centre.
More
build
people.
a new town centre, then is a busy high street, and put the businesses also.
Some people called Slough the ugliest town in the UK. I don't quite agree with it. I think it looks all right. What do you make of that?
Some parts of it are nice. Like, there's not really much here no more. When I was growing up as a kid, there was a lot more to see and do.
One thing you love about Slough still, something from your childhood that is still here, something that your barbers.
Yeah, my barber's over there. I've been coming to them ever since I was in year 7, so been coming to them for nearly 12 years, 13 years.
Well, at least they've not shut down.
Yeah.
Up to 14% of the shops here are so-called undesirable units, such as pawn shops, game shops, such as this one, which are basically high street casinos with slots. And we've been here about 20 minutes so far, and this is about the 4th game/gambling shop I've seen in that time. What can you be proud of? I mean, you're home to the Mars Bar. The Mars Bar was first made here in 19...
That's the only thing.
Hello, officers. What do you love about Slough? We're just trying to find people who love the place.
We're working at the moment.
Slough is also one of the most ethnically diverse places in the UK. 47% of people here are of an Asian background. Just 36% are white, a minority. And when it comes to religion, Christians come in at 32% and Muslims at 30%. It is the most ethnically diverse place in the UK, I think.
Only because they shoved a load of people here at once. I don't make anything of it, really. I mean, everyone to their own. They can be wherever they want. I believe it's a free world. It's not, but it should be. You should be able to go wherever you want. But I think it should be done in the right way. In my belief, and I'm not being racist at all, you should think of your own before you think of others. I mean, that's just common sense.
What were you looking at here? Just the notices on...
Yeah, looking for maybe some flat to rent or something.
You need a flat to rent?
Yeah.
What are rents like around here? Expensive?
Very expensive. 1,500.
For one bed?
2 bed.
Did you see anything you liked here?
No. Just mostly people want...
This one here is interesting. It says room available to a single girl. What's that about? A single girl? Why do they want single girls?
Who's know? I don't know.
I've come out of prison and I missed an appointment, so now I've got to go back to prison.
Oh, right.
It's a waste of time, really. Do you know what I mean?
So you're doing some last-minute shopping before prison?
No, I'm going to go and get a McDonald's before I go to prison because the food in there is shit.
When are you going back?
I've got to go back now.
So you're going to get McDonald's and then you're going to prison?
Yeah. Anyway, I've got to go. I've got to go to prison. See you later.
There we go. I love the place. I love Slough. There was very friendly people there, great business heritage, great background as well, and the biggest private trading estate in Europe. So lots to shout about. Paul, what do you make of the guy's comments about migration? Of course, the most ethnically diverse place in the UK. Good thing?
I mean, it is very ethnically diverse. I think that's a good thing. And, you know, the settled community there of people from the Punjab in particular have been there for 40 years. So it's not a new thing. I remember driving past the Polish centre. They've been there since the Second World War.
Yeah.
So, you know, good place.
OK, very quickly, Slough, much experience?
the birthplace of the Mars bar.
Yes.
It should be revered, treasured. Mars bars are wonderful, either out the wrapper or deep fried. And it should be a thriving place, what we need to look after in the UK.
It was amazing going outside the Mars bar factory. You can smell a Mars bar. It's got a distinct smell. Other chocolates are available, by the way. But if you open a Mars bar at home and smell it, that's what the whole industrial estate smelled like. Anyway, moving on, I'll be bringing you tomorrow's front pages, hot off the press, including the Mail on Sunday front page. Donald Trump is asked if he'll deport Prince Harry, and he's given an answer. That's next. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. Time now for your weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. The cloud that we've had around throughout Saturday is going to be staying with us into Sunday as well, particularly across central areas of the UK, Northern Ireland, into parts of England and Wales. We'll continue to see outbreaks of rain and drizzle this evening and overnight. For the far north and south, though, we will start to see some clearer spells emerging, and underneath those clear skies, temperatures will drop off quite a touch, as low as -7 degrees Celsius for some rural parts of Scotland. This will be accompanied by some freezing fog patches, maybe also some icy stretches where surfaces are still wet, particularly if left untreated. Despite the very cold start to the day in Scotland, though, it is going to be a very sunny one here once the fog does eventually clear its way off, and we'll hold on to the sunshine right throughout the day. For Northern Ireland, then, into those central areas of England and Wales, it's going to be dull, drab and dreary, unfortunately. Further outbreaks of drizzle to contend with. But for the far south of England, we're starting the day off with something a touch brighter here. The cloud will tend to build from the east throughout the day, so we're going to be left with the fringes of parts of Pembrokeshire, West Wales and down towards Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly that will hold on to the sunshine the longest, whereas further rain pushes into southeastern England later on. With the cloud around, it is going to be another rather cold day, particularly once you factor in the easterly wind that's going to start building once again. So it's going to be feeling colder than these temperatures necessarily show on the chart. And that easterly wind is something that will hold on into the new working week as well. High pressure stays in control across Scandinavia, allowing that easterly wind to push its way in, and that is going to add a wind chill factor on top of the already cold conditions. Further showers pushing in from the North Sea with an extensive area of cloud. Those showers will be wintry over higher ground areas as well. It's a scenario that we're going to have to get used to because it is expected to stay very similar throughout the forthcoming week. Cloudy for the vast majority of us, and temperatures still slightly below average for the time of year. Bye-bye. Enjoy your evening.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 o'clock, I'm Ben Leo, and breaking tonight, get this, the Tories call for a pact with Reform to save the UK. That's the headline on the Sunday Express, dropping right now on our desks. Leading Tories have called for Kemi Badenoch to make an election deal with Nigel Farage and his team. They report that powerful figures want the Conservatives and Reform to reach a deal, stop the bickering and stop splitting the centre-right vote. Powerful voices include the likes of Lord Craig McKinley. He's echoed those similar calls from the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg and Esther McVeigh made in this past week. Nigel Farage, of course, and the likes of Zia Youssef, the Reform chairman, they've already dismissed the idea in the past, but will they be open to maybe a pact as an election draws nearer? Elsewhere, on the front page of the Mail on Sunday, Donald Trump has said he won't deport Prince Harry, as the Duke has, quote, enough problems with his wife, Meghan Markle, who he also called terrible. Plus, a big exclusive coming up in the Mail on Sunday. News of a new fake royal tour for the pair, Harry and Meghan. The Mail on Sunday's Charlotte Griffiths joins me live in the studio with the bombshell announcement. And what's Humza Yousaf banging on about here?
Muslims are taking over the UK.
That's not the full clip, by the way. There is more context to be given. We'll share that later in the show. And also some breaking news in the past couple of hours. Jeremy Clarkson has absolutely laid into this Labour government and said he'd rather... I won't tell you what he'd rather do. He'd rather do something very, very shocking than continue being ruled under Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves. Joining me to go through all the papers tonight is journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, the former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards and the former Met Police Detective Peter Bleksley. First, though, let's get your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Ben, thank you. 10:02, the top story tonight. Health Minister Andrew Gwynn has become the fourth high-profile figure to leave Sir Keir Starmer's Labour government since their election win in July. He's been sacked today over badly misjudged WhatsApp messages, reportedly insulting constituents and colleagues, including allegedly hoping a 72-year-old woman would soon be dead. The Labour MP for Gorton and Denton has apologised and says he'll continue to support the party. Labour says it's investigating and will take swift action if it finds rules were breached. The parents of two girls killed in the Southport knife attack say they are trying to find light in the dark, speaking publicly for the first time since the tragedy. They described their daughters, Bibi and Elsie, as confident, happy and affectionate, and said the killer's sentencing should not have been televised. Axel Rudakabana was handed a life sentence with a minimum term of 52 years. That is one of the highest ever recorded. The families say they want the girls to be remembered for their personalities, not for the details of the crime. And they've also welcomed a public inquiry into the attack. Protesters clashed with police in London today, less than an hour after senior Conservatives addressed a rally against a proposed Chinese so-called mega embassy. More than 1,000 people gathered, waving placards and chanting "Free Hong Kong." Former Security Minister Tom Tugendhat warned the embassy would be a grave mistake, accusing the Chinese Communist Party of bringing fear to Britain. 2 people were arrested at the scene and tensions escalated after a woman collapsed in the rain-covered road, sparking confrontations between protesters and police. Well, Tower Hamlets Council rejected plans for the embassy, but the government will now have the final say. The Foreign Office has denied reports that it's set to open talks on slavery reparations, with Caribbean officials demanding trillions of pounds from the UK. According to the Telegraph newspaper, a meeting could happen as soon as April, after Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley previously demanded almost £4 trillion from Britain. The Foreign Office, though, has told us here at GB News the story is false and misleading and insists the government's position remains unchanged. But the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, has previously been vocal in his support. To the United States, where President Donald Trump is set to revoke Joe Biden's security clearances and stop his daily intelligence briefings, saying there's no need for his predecessor to receive classified information. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said, "Joe, you're fired," as he referenced a report by Special Counsel Robert Hur that described Biden last year as a well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory. A spokesperson for Joe Biden has declined to comment. And a cold snap is sweeping in, with temperatures set to drop as low as -7 degrees over the coming days. Britain is also bracing for showery rain, with a yellow weather warning in place across much of the country. And snow is also expected in northern parts. The Met Office says demand for healthcare is likely to rise too, but thankfully the return of the dreaded beast from the east is unlikely. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you in around an hour. Now, though, it's over to Ben.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam, and welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Before we get stuck into the papers, I have to say I've had lots of emails and your say saying, Ben, that wasn't fumes coming out of the power station behind you in Leo Unleashed in Slough, it's water vapour. Is it? OK, I accept your point. I'm only human. Some of you saying I should have known that, but I didn't, so there we go, my mistake. Right, we get stuck into the big headline, breaking news now on the Sunday Express. Apparently, leading Tories have called for Kemi Badenoch to make an election pact with Nigel Farage and Reform UK. Powerful figures, writes the Express, want the Conservatives and Reform to reach a deal to stop the centre-right votes being split. Those powerful voices include Lord Craig McKinley, who's echoed calls from the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg and Esther McVeigh in recent weeks for that very thing, a deal with Reform. Nigel Farage, of course, we all know what he thinks of that so far, and Zia Youssef, the Reform chairman. They've dismissed it in the past. But let's get the thoughts now of my panel tonight. Former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards, journalist and communications advisor Linda Jubilee, and the former Met Police detective Peter Bleksley. Welcome back, all. Peter, what do you make of this? Should Nigel Farage and Reform think about a pact with the Tories?
Nigel Farage is not going to enter into a pact with the Tories because it would be a ridiculous thing to do at the moment. Reform are on the rise, the Tories are on the slide. Nigel Farage doesn't need the Tories. The Tories certainly need him and the votes that he will attract. So I'm sure he's going to give them a very, very wide berth and let them squirm for longer.
But Linda, this new poll in the Observer tomorrow, the MRP poll from yesterday had the Tories, Reform and Labour split three ways. So if that was the case come election time, Reform would have to do a deal with the Tories.
Well, would they? I don't know that they would, actually.
It would be a hung parliament otherwise, according to that massive MRP poll. Other polls show differently.
Because we discuss all these things and we analyse all these polls, but at the end of the day, it's what people want to do when they get in the polling booth and they put X marks a spot and they give their vote over. And it could easily be split three ways, I think. In fact, that wouldn't be a bad thing for Reform.
Paul?
No,
can we do some visualisation? Role play now. Could you imagine? Could you imagine in 4 years? You wake up after the election and you see the headlines on GB News. And it says hung Parliament. And Nigel Farage is there walking into CCHQ with Kemi Badenoch. They're thrashing out a deal. They're shaking hands. Could you see that?
No, I can't see it. But, you know, the last time this happened was in 1906, Ben, as I'm sure we know. The Liberals and the Labour Party did exactly this secret deal behind the scenes. Who suffered the most? The bigger party, not the smaller party. So this would be, in the Conservatives, to be in that scenario, would be an absolute suicide pact. No way they're going to do it.
Peter, do you think the likes of Nigel Farage would ever change his mind? It's all going well for Reform at the moment. They're flying high in the polls. They can't do anything wrong. But can I say, to provide some balance, it's easy, as Labour have seen, shouting from the sidelines.
Whether you love or loathe Mr Farage, he's a canny operator. And at the moment, I'm sure he's going to sit tight, allow Reform's rise to continue, which it is. All the polls are bearing that out. And he will keep his powder dry. There's a long, long way to go before any general
4
election.
years.
Yeah.
I mean, was it Harold Wilson once said that 7 days was a long time?
A week is a long time in politics.
A week is a long time in politics.
Yeah.
4 years is an eternity.
Yeah.
OK. Should we go through some of the other front pages? The Mail on Sunday, we'll look at these stories on the front of the Mail in more detail shortly. We have the editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, joining me live in the studio in just a second. But the headline in the Mail on Sunday is, as we know, Paul Richards, Minister sacked for Hope You Die jibe about pensioners. This is the Health Minister, Andrew Gwynn, also made anti-Semitic sites and jokes about a constituent being mown down by a truck. What's going on here? Because the Mail on Sunday, very quickly, they got these WhatsApp messages dating back to 2019. And as far as we understand, there's only 6 people in this WhatsApp group. So first questions first. Who has stitched up, and he deserves to be stitched up, but who has grassed him up?
One of the
in that
6.
group.
I mean, it could be one of the 6, or it could be someone else who's seen the WhatsApp groups from over somebody's shoulder. We don't know it's one of the 6. I mean, the Labour Party and Number 10 acted so swiftly over this that they know that this is really egregious stuff. Gwynn's now gone. He's not a Labour MP. He's not in the government, and his membership's been suspended as well. He just carries on as an independent member of Parliament.
But you've got to look
drawing that fat salary.
Well, you know, maybe, like I said earlier, he might go anyway as an MP too. But I just think, you know, they acted very swiftly, fair play, and it's, you know, he's been out within hours of this stuff coming to light because it is so horrible.
It's on the front of the Sunday Telegraph as well, if we can just see that.
It's horrible, horrible things he wrote, and he should know better, frankly. And it just also makes the point: don't write stupid things down, even on social media, because it will come out.
Would learn.
You would, wouldn't you?
Look at the COVID inquiry and look at all those WhatsApp messages that were repeated, dreadful WhatsApp messages.
But this goes way beyond stupidity. This clearly shows that deep down he is a revolting human being. And so he does not deserve to sit in Parliament on a fat MP's salary. And I hope that his constituents will do what they've got to do to ensure that a by-election is called and he slings his hook.
Can they do that? Can the constituents? They can apply a lot of pressure, can't they?
There's a recall petition, but that has to be triggered by certain events. You can't just do it randomly. But, you know, let's see. I mean, he is a centrist MP. He's not some Corbynite loon.
Centrist.
You know, he is somebody in the moderate mainstream
he was
of the
exposed
party.
in this cache of WhatsApp messages as saying people look too Jewish and lots of anti-Semitic messages. I mean, I don't know many centrists who speak like that.
He hopes somebody dies. Centrist MP is not how I would describe him.
Terrible.
There's a whole raft of alternative words I would use.
And what does this say, Paul, as well? Sorry to... I mean, it's a Labour story, so you're going to get the brunt of this,
absolutely,
I'm afraid.
of course.
But
That's what I meant.
What does it say about the fact that these messages were allowed to circulate for so long in this group, amongst this group of 6 people, I guess all local Labour types, and for, what were we here in, for 6 years?
Yeah.
They've been talking like this.
Find the motivation of the person who actually did the leak. Whoever leaked
maybe somebody fancies the seat, you know, it's Labour seat, maybe somebody fancies their chances. I mean, if you look at some of the comments that will be underneath the things I'm saying tonight there, people do intemperate things on social media, which they then regret. You know, people shouldn't do this stuff in the comments because it is there forever. And the same in WhatsApp groups. And these are not closed groups. They're not, you know. We used to say in the old days, don't write anything you're not happy to see in print
I
an
was
hour later.
potty-mouthed as they come on social media, but I'm not a highly paid, elected public servant. There's a big, big difference.
But aren't you glad we didn't have social media when you were a serving police officer? Because some of the stuff I bet you said out loud, you wouldn't want to see in print later.
Yeah, have you said stuff, Peter, that you think, you know, if it was exposed today... I mean, I admittedly...
We all do. I mean, you know, exactly, you know, it's...
But not like that, though. I will say, I've never sat there saying, I hope people die and making fun of Jews or blacks or Asians or any race.
Of course not.
You know.
Beyond the pale.
It is beyond the pale, exactly, which is why he's gone so quickly, within hours.
Yeah, I suppose credit to Keir... Well, I suppose he has no choice other than kick him out.
Well, sometimes they try and defend. They try and mount some sort of defence and say whatever. But no, this time, absolutely out on his ear within hours.
If he had a shred of common decency, he'd resign as an MP, thereby triggering a by-election. But I suspect he won't because he wants to carry on drawing that salary.
Well, let's see.
And just also on the Telegraph, this small smidge on the front, it says taxpayers face a bill of £200 billion, the cost of Labour's failure on migration. This is a study from the Centre for Policy Studies, basically saying that more than 800,000 migrants who came to Britain between 2021 and 2024, I mean, that's the Boris wave, to be fair. That was the Tory failure. They will cost taxpayers over the course of their lifetime here £245 billion, Linda.
It's extraordinary. I know that. I mean, I've said before on this show that I did some work for some of the people who are airlifted off the tarmac at Kabul. Now, those are evacuees. They have indefinite leave to remain. But inevitably, I went into asylum-seeking hotels for asylum seekers, and they were absolutely, the bills were enormous per hotel. And imagine how many hotels there were right across the country. It was a huge amount of money.
When you say off the tarmac at Kabul, was that after the airport bomb?
That was when the Taliban took over, and you saw those crowds clinging onto the aircraft.
And there was a bomb.
Those people, that's right, those people were evacuees.
Yeah.
We evacuated them, and those are the people I worked with for about a year because we had to get them integrated into and out of the hotels, which we did.
But a quick mention of small boats, if I may. This week, just to repeat, 391 people came into the UK on small boats this week, which I'm sure is enough to fill yet another hotel, and we're in the grip of winter.
Yeah.
What are the figures going to be like as spring arrives?
Yeah, definitely. Good point. Interesting point about Kabul. I actually, when I worked at The Sun, I helped a young baby who almost died, actually. I won't go into detail of the injuries, but with The Sun and Priti Patel at the time, we managed to get the baby and his mother over from Afghanistan, and he's now living a happy life in London. So that's something I'm very proud of.
And we had an obligation to those people.
Absolutely, they were on our side,
many of them were
they?
interpreters for the British Army.
helping us.
Definitely.
And they were
fighting the
helping
Taliban.
us.
Okay.
But it did mean that I got a very close idea of how much money was being spent, and it was colossal.
Far too much.
It would shock people.
And I'll just say they're not all refugees. They're not all Afghanis. You know, there's people. There's mostly economic migrants. Let's be honest. OK, let me move on very quickly because the London Youth Achievement Awards. I want to give this a quick plug because it's very important for our youth of today. It's an opportunity for the London Assembly, which is in close collaboration with the London Youth Assembly, to recognise the valuable impact of young people across the capital, awarding those who have been making a real difference in their communities. Nominations are open now, and the chair of the London Youth Assembly, Ashan Kera, joins us now. Ashan, good evening. Thank you for joining me. Just very quickly, why are these awards important? When are the awards taking place? Just give us a flavour of what's to come.
Yeah, so the London Youth Achievement Awards are quite important because they recognise the remarkable achievements of young people across London. And we have quite a few categories. We have a Greener London Award and a Best Youth Campaign Award. So there's something for everyone. Yeah. We are having our inaugural ceremony on the 2nd of May at City Hall, and we expect the Mayor to attend alongside Assembly members and other distinguished guests.
Okay.
And I must point out, Ben, we've had quite a lot of interest in this, and therefore we are now extending the deadline for nominations up until the 21st of February. So I would urge all your wonderful viewers to nominate anyone who they think is truly deserving of an award, and they can find more details on london.gov.uk.
OK, and you mentioned Sadiq Khan, the Mayor. He's presenting an award.
Yes, we hope he's going to be there. He said he'll consider it, he'll look into it. Fingers crossed he will be there. I know the Mayor is very passionate about working with young people, so let's hope that he shows his support for young people too. OK, Ashan, great. Thank you very much for that. We look forward to covering the awards when they come around. More front pages coming up, including this Mail on Sunday exclusive. Donald Trump has talked about Prince Harry, saying that he would not be deporting him. But there's a big exclusive in the Mail on Sunday from the one Charlotte Griffiths. She's in the studio with me next. It's on Harry and Meghan. I know some of you love them, some of you, probably more of you, dislike them, but there's some big plans in store for them. Before we get stuck into that, here's your chance to win 2 big prize bundles in our Great British giveaway. Here's all the details you need to win.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have...
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners.
Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
We've got the Daily Mail now with the latest in the court case over whether a man is a woman or a man. It's a tough question. And J.K. Rowling has given her opinion. I think I can guess what it is, Cressida.
Explosive twist in Australia's What is a Woman trans battle as Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling gets involved. So this is the court case Giggle versus Tickle. Tickle was a...
He's Mr. Men.
That's right. It's a Mr. Men trans battle.
Kind of is a Mr. Man.
It was a women's group, wasn't it? Tickle, Giggles... Oh, I get it wrong. Giggles for girls. And Roxy Tickle, who is a trans woman, wanted to join this group and wasn't allowed, was banned for being a biological male, and then sued and amazingly got $10,000 for this, which is already extraordinary to me.
Yeah.
But it's now doubling down and is going to file a cross appeal seeking to upgrade the judgment.
Yeah.
So Roxy has come back for another bite of the cherry.
And I've had a look at this Roxanne Tickle, the trans woman.
Is she
pretty? No, not one of the pretty ones. Not a Blair White. Just looks like, to be honest, it looks like
you could be sued for $10,000.
Looks like one of us.
Yeah.
To be honest, no. Like I mean, I'll happily.
For yourself.
No, I think it's an absolute. It's a farce, and it's making a mockery of not just. It's not just making a mockery of women's right to have their own spaces. It's making a mockery of genuine trans people who actually put some effort in and look like a woman.
What do you mean a genuine trans
And also,
people?
if
We don't believe in that.
If your name was Roxanne, if you were going to transition, you wouldn't pick the name Roxanne Tickle. You'd choose Tess.
You Tess. That's a kind of name. No, the truth is, that's one of the problems, is you get a choice of the name you're going to choose. And of course, you're going to choose like a hot Roxanne. That's a hot Roxanne. That's a great name. They're not going to choose.
You don't think
Louis.
Tess would work better with Tickle?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. More front pages have dropped, and there are some juicy stories inside. Let's start with the Mail on... Sorry, no, the Sunday Times. The Sunday Times. The headline is, "We're constantly looking for light in the darkness." This is a really moving and heartfelt interview. The first one, actually, with the parents of the poor girls involved in the Southport murders. They pay tribute to the 3 little ones. They recall the horror of the day their daughters died. And actually, the piece is... It's quite a positive one. They want to remember the girls for all their love and joy that they gave the world and not just the horrors of that day. Just further down beneath this, big story, Sir Keir Starmer asked the civil service head to quash a BBC story on Sue Gray's pay. We'll get stuck into this properly in just a minute, but Sir Keir Starmer, it says, asked the Cabinet Secretary to urge the BBC not to run a story revealing Sue Gray was paid more than him. That sounds pretty damning, if you ask me. To The Observer, Labour to fix the benefit system to get people back into work. And elsewhere, gambling firms send users' data to Facebook. The Independent, UN torture czar hits out at inhumane indefinite jail terms. This is a UN torture czar said that British prisoners trapped on indefinite jail terms are being detained arbitrarily after The Independent revealed 6 in 10 are being blocked from moving to open jails. The Sun on Sunday, another exclusive interview to do with Southport. Horror will live with me forever. A hero who confronted the Southport knife attacker has told how it has tormented him and it will stay with him for life. Definitely worth a look. The Sunday Mirror. Again, Southport, they are our angels. This is the first emotional interview with Elsie and Bibi's parents. And the Mail on Sunday. Some great stories on the front here. Of course, the Mail on Sunday, they broke the exclusive earlier that Health Minister Andrew Gwynn made anti-Semitic jokes and also said that one of his constituents he'd like to see dying before the next election because she dared to ask him about bin collections. Can you imagine that? We've been discussing that, of course, thus far. And another exclusive coming from the Mail on Sunday. On the front page, Donald Trump has said he won't deport Prince Harry, as the Duke already has, quote, enough problems with his wife. He said that earlier today, and that Meghan Markle was terrible. But I'm also joined by the editor of the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, to tell us more about that and something else, Charlotte, that you have uncovered in tomorrow's Mail.
Yeah, so, well, starting with the Donald Trump thing, we've heard Donald Trump say rude things about Meghan before, but even this, I mean, I found it so shocking. He said he's got enough trouble with his wife. It almost sounded like he was hinting the breakup or something. But ever since then, you know, because they're in Canada at the moment promoting Invictus, they've been extremely affectionate with each other. And it comes at the end of quite a long period in which they've had a professional separation, so they haven't actually been seen together much lately. But they've got, obviously, they've got the Invictus Games for the next few days. But then what I've revealed on page 3 is that after the Invictus Games, they've got their, I'm going to call it the Worldwide Privacy Tour, because that's what South Park called it. They're going to embark on another tour together at some point this year. We think probably around the spring, because they went last May to Nigeria.
Yeah.
And they've been invited by Ghana to go back. And what we do know is that they're being very secretive, as is the way with the Sussexes, so they're not going to release details until 10 days before they go.
So, sorry to interrupt, is this going to be another fake royal tour?
Yeah, it's a pseudo-royal tour, basically. Right. And it really helps them, because if they're being seen doing good deeds with orphanages and things, it helps their Netflix deals back in California. It helps their next, podcast deal. So for them,
nobody's listening and nobody's watching this output.
Well, I don't know, because if you see those two going around Africa, say next year or later this year, that will be on the front pages of all the papers. And it will help. And when Netflix consider renewing their deal, which they're going to do around the springtime, and it may well not be, it's hanging by a thread, their Netflix deal, they might say, oh, well, they do get a lot of publicity. They are on the front page of every newspaper globally. Let's sign them on again.
I wasn't aware that Netflix deal was even up for grabs again. So what was the fee last time? Spotify was £20 million
yes,
or dollars,
they say it's an £80 million Netflix deal.
80?
They say, yeah, that's what the reported number is, if I remember that right. But of course, they're not bad-mouthing them right now, because Meghan's new series hasn't come out yet. So recently, Netflix have actually been quite positive about them. But behind the scenes, we are hearing that the deal is hanging by a thread, because their previous series just haven't done that well.
Charlotte, who cares about Harry and Meghan? Because it feels like, especially in America, the tide is turning on all these woke celebrities and these militant lefties, and the likes of Harry and Meghan, they preach humanity and compassion and forgiveness, and yet Prince Harry, for starters, has never even met his father-in-law.
Yeah.
He hasn't arranged any meeting for Thomas Markle Sr. to come and see his grandchildren, as far as we understand. And then also Meghan Markle, who's some faux humanitarian, hasn't even accepted, as far as we know, again, an apology from her father for setting up those pat pictures. So where's the compassion and the love and the forgiveness? Are they just a bunch of fakers, aren't they?
Well, you say who cares about Meghan Markle and Harry. They care when they're bad-mouthing the royals. Frankly, that's what they had to trade on for a really long time. They bad-mouth the royals. Once they start talking about their humanitarian efforts and their good deeds... Invictus is amazing, but really people don't buy into it. And we saw that this week with Meghan Markle.
Well, the fact is they're not in the royal family anymore.
They're not in
That's
the royal family. They've lost their big trading point.
Yeah.
And this week, Meghan said that she got some Billie Eilish merch and sent it to a girl whose house had been ruined in the California fires. And nobody really cared. Nobody thought, oh, well done, Meghan, what a
You
good
are
deed.
royal or you are non-royal.
Yeah.
That has always been the rule.
They don't have much longevity left, I don't think.
I wish Meghan would just take her celery sticks and her smoothies and disappear from public life, because she's tedious. She talks word salad balderdash every time she opens her mouth, and she's just tiresome.
Tell you what, the President of the United States bothered to say quite a few things about her today. So she is a global talking point. And even though he said very negative things about her, I bet she's pretty pleased to be talked about by the President of the United States, even if she hates him, which she does.
Yeah, OK. Can we just go back to this story on the Sunday Times? Thank you, Charlotte, for that. Appreciate it. Oh, just a quick word as well. Great exclusive from the Mail on Sunday about Andrew Gwynn earlier today. What did you hear? When did you hear about that story? When did you know it was going to be on the front page? What was going on in the newsroom? Were Were you there today?
Yeah, well, it was very much a secret squirrel project all week, but I sit a couple of desks along from Abel, so I knew he wasn't really around much, so that's a good sign, isn't it, that he's got a big scoop on his hands. But it was talk about setting the agenda. You know, as soon as the calls went in, 3 hours later, Keir Starmer sacked him. So well done, the Mail on Sunday. Brilliant from Abel and Glenn Owen.
Yeah.
So Abel and Glenn had been working on this story all week, I guess.
Yeah.
Or maybe even multiple weeks, you never know.
Maybe even multiple weeks, but I think it really gathered pace this week.
And Labour, so you guys, not you, but the paper, put the calls in this evening or this afternoon to Number 10? And Starmer reacted pretty much instantaneously?
Yeah. No, I don't think it was this evening. I think it was earlier, but I actually don't know.
And can you remember it ever happening...
It was quite a secret squirrel project in the office.
Charlotte, can you ever remember this as happening as fast as it has? I mean, the sacking was within 3 hours.
Hats off to Keir Starmer. But, I mean, when you see those texts in writing, he had no other choice.
It's an open and a shut case, absolutely. But it's the speed, I think, is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it just confirmed what I've always feared about Labour under Keir Starmer. It's the culture of sneering. I mean, let alone being anti-Semitic. I mean, that's pretty bad. But there's just this culture of sneering about their own constituents.
Well, that's why he had to go.
Really depressing to read, and I just feel like it's a cultural thing across the party, personally.
Yeah, and just to remind viewers, if you're not up to speed with what the comments were, so a constituent of Andrew Gwynn wrote to him and wanted to talk about bin collections, said, look, I didn't vote for you, but you're my MP now, so can you help me out with bin collections? You know, just some query. Anyway, Andrew Gwynn went on this WhatsApp and then said... he posted the letter from the constituent and said, "Dear resident, F your bins. I'm re-elected, and without your vote, screw you. P.S. Hopefully you'll have croaked by the next election."
Not to her, it's worth stressing, though. He didn't send that back to the actual constituent. No, it doesn't matter, but let's be clear.
The other person was somebody that had supported him to get him elected, and then he said, I hope he gets run over by a lorry.
Yes. I mean, that's sociopathic, actually.
It is a bit. I mean, a lot.
OK. Thank you, Charlotte. Some great stories. A good day tomorrow for the Mail on Sunday.
Mail on Sunday.
And yes, also, if we've got time, the Sunday Times very quickly. Let me just read you this statement about the Health Minister, Andrew Gwynn, from the government. Let's get this out of the way. The Prime Minister is determined to uphold high standards of conduct in public office and lead a government in the service of working people. He will not hesitate to take action against any minister who fails to meet these standards, as he has in this case. And Andrew Gwynn has said in response, I deeply regret my badly misjudged comments and apologise for any offence I've caused. Can we show the Sunday Times very quickly? This story on the bottom was pretty bombshell. Starmer asked civil service head to quash the BBC story on Sue Gray's pay. Paul Richards, this isn't good for Keir Starmer. Why is he getting involved in what the BBC broadcast and trying to quash stories? What's he scared of?
Well, I just think, I haven't read the story in detail, but it would seem to me he's just trying to stop somebody's pay scales being put in the public domain. Now, that's entirely reasonable, isn't it?
Well, Paul, you have really sanitised that story.
Somebody who's being paid out of the public purse? No. We have a right to know.
It says Keir Starmer went to Simon Case, the Cabinet Secretary, and apparently Downing Street was scrambling to stop the Chief of Staff's salary becoming public.
Didn't work, though, did it? Because it was public, so, you know, there you go. Wasn't very successful.
Been trying to stop that story. The point of the story was that Sue Gray was being paid £4,000 more than the actual Prime Minister of this country.
But loads of people are paid more than the Prime Minister.
Yeah, Paul, this isn't working as a strategitic line.
It's true.
Not working.
We don't pay our Prime Ministers as well as our business leaders.
That's irrelevant. He shouldn't have gone to to a senior civil servant like that and encouraged him to try and stop a BBC story. You know that shouldn't be happening.
And it stinks.
Nah, it's just spin doctoring, isn't it?
Stinks like kippers at breakfast, Paul. There's a key line here. It says Keir Starmer and his team believed the BBC shouldn't be publishing hostile and anonymous briefings about Gray. Why shouldn't the BBC publish hostile or critiquing pieces about Sue Gray or Labour? I mean, what right does Keir Starmer have to say the state broadcaster can't hold the government to account?
All governments try and defend their line, don't they, and, you know, push their own view forward. That's just what spin doctoring is.
By censoring the BBC?
Yeah, they're not censoring. And also the story came out, didn't it? The story was in the public domain. It didn't work.
Trying to persuade someone not to run a story is censorship.
The fact that it didn't work doesn't mitigate what they were doing.
Happens all the time.
It doesn't mitigate it at all. They tried to hush it up. He wanted to stop the story. The fact that he didn't doesn't make his actions better.
OK, all right. I think it's a really bad look for Keir Starmer trying to censor the state broadcaster publishing stories on the government of the day. I mean, it sounds pretty authoritarian to me. Anyway, coming up, take a look at this.
Muslims are taking over the UK.
There's more to that clip. I'll bring you the full context in just a tick. This is Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Hello there, very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. The cloud that we've had around throughout Saturday is going to be staying with us into Sunday as well, particularly across central areas of the UK, Northern Ireland, into parts of England and Wales. We'll continue to see outbreaks of rain and drizzle this evening and overnight. For the far north and south, though, we will start to see some clearer spells emerging, and underneath those clear skies, temperatures will drop off quite a touch, as low as -7 degrees Celsius for some rural parts of Scotland. This will be accompanied by some freezing fog patches, maybe also some icy stretches where surfaces are still wet, particularly if left untreated. Despite the very cold start to the day in Scotland, though, it is going to be a very sunny one here once the fog does eventually clear its way off, and we'll hold on to the sunshine right throughout the day. For Northern Ireland, then, into those central areas of England and Wales, it's going to be dull, drab and dreary, unfortunately. Further outbreaks of drizzle to contend with. But for the far south of England, we're starting the day off with something a touch brighter here. The cloud will tend to build from the east throughout the day, so we're going to be left with the fringes of parts of Pembrokeshire, West Wales and down towards Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly that will hold on to the sunshine the longest, whereas further rain pushes into southeastern England later on. With the cloud around, it is going to be another rather cold day, particularly once you factor in the easterly wind that's going to start building once again. So it's going to be feeling colder than these temperatures necessarily show on the chart. And that easterly wind is something that will hold on into the new working week as well. High pressure stays in control across Scandinavia, allowing that easterly wind to push its way in, and that is going to add a wind chill factor on top of the already cold conditions. Further showers pushing in from the North Sea with an extensive area of cloud. Those showers will be wintry over higher ground areas as well. It's a scenario that we're going to have to get used to because it is expected to stay very similar throughout the forthcoming week. Cloudy for the vast majority of us, and temperatures still slightly below average for the time of year. Bye-bye. Enjoy your evening.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
So we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. More papers have just dropped. Let's have a recap of all of the front pages, actually, starting with the Mail on Sunday. We just discussed it. Minister sacked for Hope You Die jibe about pensioners. This is Andrew Gwynn, the Health Minister. He's gone. Charlotte Griffiths, the editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday, just explained how it all went down. They put a call in earlier today, and Number 10 reacted pretty swiftly. They said, "See you later, Mr Gwynn." The Sunday Express. Tories call for reform pact to save the UK. We covered this a bit earlier. As a reminder, it's senior Tories, including Lord McKinley, Craig McKinley, have echoed calls from Jacob Rees-Mogg and Esther McVeigh for reform to do a deal with the Conservative Party before the next election. Nigel Farage has previously said absolutely no way. The Sunday Telegraph covers that minister sacked for saying the pensioner should die again. At the bottom, Donald Trump, "I will not deport Prince Harry." And taxpayers face £200 billion cost of failure on migration. The Sunday Times carries a heartfelt interview with the parents of the poor Southport girls who were murdered by that monster. I'm not going to name him. And down the bottom, again, we just discussed it. This is going to be a big story, I think, which gains traction at the start of next week and indeed tomorrow. Keir Starmer went into the Cabinet Office and demanded they try and quash a BBC story on Sue Gray's pay. He said he didn't want the state broadcaster reporting on Sue Gray and indeed publishing hostile, quote-unquote, commentary. What a joke. The Observer tomorrow. Labour is to fix the benefit system to get people back into work. And elsewhere, gambling firms are sending users' data to Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg, do you trust him? The Independent next. UN torture czar hits out at inhumane indefinite jail terms. The Sun on Sunday, another Southport exclusive interview, this time with a father of two who bravely confronted the monster knife attacker that day. What a guy, what a hero. No doubt he saved many lives. That's a great story in The Sun on Sunday tomorrow. And the Sunday Mirror carries some of that exclusive interview with the parents of the victims. The first emotional interview with Elsie and BB's parents. Rest in peace, those girls. Let's talk about a story in the Sunday Times tomorrow. Jeremy Clarkson, of formerly Top Gear fame and now The Farm and so on, he's written a column in the Sunday Times, pretty damning. He says, Brexit makes me want to sit in a gutter and weep. And I quote, he says, since we left the EU, it's been easier to get into Iraq than France. None of this has made our lives better in any way. We're told it's better to be governed by a democratically elected parliament than some bankers in Brussels, but I'm not sure about that. I'd certainly prefer the bankers to Starmer and Reeves. I'd prefer anything to Starmer and Reeves. The fourth form of my local school, my dogs, Donald Trump even. Let's get the thoughts of my panel again now. Charlotte Griffiths is with us as well. Paul Richards. So Jeremy Clarkson here is basically saying he doesn't like Brexit, and one of the key drivers of that is because he'd rather be governed by some strange anonymous men in dark suits in Brussels than your pal Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves.
I think he's a bit confused. So he's saying he thinks Brexit's a disaster, but he doesn't like the Labour government either. He'd want open borders with France. I think he had some, space to fill for his column, and he just splurged out all kinds of nonsense. He's a controversialist, isn't he? That's how he makes his money now. And it just seems to be... And it's all over the place, isn't it?
Has Brexit been a success, Linda?
No. Brexit? No, not yet. But that doesn't mean to say we can't stick with it.
Because it hasn't been tried yet. Doesn't say that about the communists, doesn't it?
You have a referendum.
It's been a disaster. Come on, it's cost us all millions, and it's made the country worse.
You've made a decision, and now you've got to make the decision work. There's no other way.
How long will it take?
You can't bring in a new referendum and have another go at this.
How long do we have to wait?
It might take a generation.
Peter, has it been a disaster?
Well, what it's meant is that I've had to queue for a bit longer when I've been at various foreign airports trying to go on holiday, and that's been a bit of an inconvenience. And I suspect that's part of the inspiration of Mr. Clarkson's story, because I suspect he travels and goes on holiday a lot more than I do.
Yeah. When did
he
spent
a lot of time.
When did he become a farmer?
Well, he wanted to avoid his tax, wasn't it?
What year was it that he became the farmer?
It'll be interesting to find out.
Yeah, because it would be interesting to find out whether it was before or after.
2019, after Brexit.
After Brexit, right. So I guarantee you that earlier he was a Brexiteer.
Yeah.
Earlier.
I think he wants
now
to bash
it's in his
Reeves
farm business.
Because obviously he hates Reeves because of the farmers' tax raid. Yeah. And he can't keep writing about farmers every single column. So now he's finding another way to bash her. So he's just gone for the Brexit thing.
He's definitely not a fan of Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, is he? Does
really about them more than Brexit.
Paul, we've got 20 seconds left before we need to move on. Do Labour need the likes of Jeremy Clarkson on board?
Well, he's somebody we want to persuade, I suppose, but he's probably hard to persuade. So, yeah.
OK. All right. We move on because this video from Humza Yousaf caught my eye earlier today. Do you remember Humza Yousaf, former First Minister of Scotland? White, everything's white. This is a different video that he published on social media earlier today.
Muslims are taking over the UK. Well, that's what you might think if you listen to the likes of former Home Secretary Suella Braverman. Just last week, she repeated the suggestion that the UK could become the first so-called Islamist state in the world with nuclear weapons. That's right. A country where the Muslim population is less than 7% is apparently going to be taken over by Islamists.
There's a much longer version on Humza Yousaf's Twitter feed, but Peter Blexley, he's mocking or making the point there that 7% I think it's probably higher. 7% of the UK population is Muslim. But at the same time, there are genuine concerns about integration. And also, may I say, you'll be an expert on this, 90-odd% of MI5's watch list is Islamist terror attacks. Of course, very different to the Muslim population. Islamists are, let's make the distinction, but, you know...
About 75%. But anyway, Hamza Yusuf, I should say, is a has-been, an irrelevancy, and he's just trying to remain kind of contemporary in some way, shape or form, and the sooner he disappears off into oblivion, the better for everybody. But in 1951, there was a census. You have it every year when there's a one in the decade. And in 1951, the population of the UK was 22.7 million people. And there were 21,000 Muslims in the UK. If you fast forward to 2021, when there were 3.9 million Muslims and the general population had tripled from 1951. Wow. So the general population multiplied by a factor of 3, the Muslim population multiplied by a factor of 150. So it is not unreasonable, I think, for many people, including those who were alive in 1951, to harbour concerns, genuinely felt concerns about the rise of Islam. But should you say that, Starmer and his like have only one answer, only one option, and that is to tar you with the brush that says you're far right, which is, of course, utter nonsense.
Yeah, I guess I don't agree with it, but I guess their argument would be, but yes, that, you know, we have such a diverse and multicultural society and everybody gets on, but yeah.
We've got lots of cultures. What we're lacking is integration.
That's a very good point.
OK, coming up is the big weekend fails. My panel will all give us their suggestion for one thing they've seen this week, which is an absolute disaster, a massive fail. Back in just a tick.
You're looking happy.
Well, the farce looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're looking for some winter sun, Spain wouldn't be a bad shout. Fine, at least for Sunday. Unsettled in Italy and reasonably breezy in Greece. We've seen that quite frequently recently, and with some showers to boot. But across Italy, well, that's where some more unsettled weather is heading, especially in the west, the north, and then Sicily through Sunday and into Monday. Iberia, fine for now, but it will turn more showery from the west as the week begins.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, after moving to the UK from Kochi in Japan over 25 years ago, our next guest missed the taste of home and started making sushi with local ingredients.
Yes, Tomono Davies went on to establish Tomono Sushi Party, inspired by her mother's dedication to cooking fresh meals every day.
Now, while sushi is usually enjoyed in restaurants in Japan, Tomono is showing that anyone can create it at home. So here we go. She's already taught over 500 people and is now bringing her passion to even more people.
So she joins us now in the studio to give us one of her sushi masterclasses. First of all, we're a little bit nervous. We're certainly not pros. I love eating sushi, but certainly not making it.
As long as you follow my instruction, it should be that easy.
OK, great. That's what we like to hear.
So tell us a little bit about your business and why we're here today.
Of course. So my name is Tomono Davies. I'm originally from the place called Kochi, as you mentioned, and I'm the founder and the owner of Tomono Sushi Party. So we bring authentic, hands-on sushi making classes to homes, offices in London and home counties. Also, we run public classes, the information which you can find on my website.
Yep.
So this goes all the way back in 90s, actually, when I was a student.
Never.
The Japanese food wasn't widely available, but I really craved a beautiful, you know, aromatic aged sushi, Japanese food. And when you're craving something, you started making your own at home. And I fell in love with the Englishman. He brought me back to UK. Then that's the time more people start asking me, can you teach me how to make sushi?
The People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're
the failure
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time now for our big weekend fails. What has caught our eyes this week that we want to share and talk about it tonight? Well, for me, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, she listed off all the absurd money and projects that have been spent by the US aid project. Take a look at this.
I would just say a strong message to Democrats who are out there pretending to be outraged about the long list of crap that this administration is cutting, federal waste and funding, like $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala, $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt, $20 million on a new Sesame Street show in Iraq, $4.5 million to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. I could go on, and I'm happy to provide this list to every single one of you.
What a scam. $20 million for an Iraqi version of Sesame Street in Baghdad somewhere. Could you imagine what's going on in the UK as well? Time now for Linda's big weekend fail. Lucy Powell delivered quite the performance on Question Time when Tory MP Richard Holden brought up the £18 billion figure on Labour's Chagos Island deal.
Hang on, just before we jump to the figures that are involved,
they're nonsense. You know they're nonsense.
Well, what are they then, Lucy?
You know they're nonsense.
What are they then?
They're nonsense, and you know they're nonsense.
Well,
hang on.
You don't know, do you, Lucy?
No, they're nonsense.
You don't know, do you?
It's in our national.
It's in China's national interest.
Don't shout over me. Don't shout over me.
Just keep
it's not a good look. It's in our national security.
You can't even answer the question about how much it's cost.
Are you talking over me again?
I'm asking you.
Are you talking over me again?
You asked me.
Are you?
Richard.
Okay, can I speak?
Richard and Lucy, just.
Can I speak?
Cool it.
Linda, why did you pick that?
Well, I saw that go out live, actually. I mean, that's kind of 101, how not to behave in front of a camera. That was a full-scale domestic. Should have been in a soap opera.
I think she needs to give you a call for some
media training.
Comms advice. Time for polls now, where Donald Trump made quite the revelation about what he intends to do with the Gaza Strip.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years.
I think he wanted to make Gaza Largo, Paul. I think it's good intentions.
It's just a reminder that absolutely everything he sees in the world is just a big property deal.
Yeah.
But what a brilliant way to get people talking about redeveloping Gaza. Because that's what it's done, and they're not dropping bombs on it tonight. People around the world are saying, OK, it might have been a really off-the-wall idea, but how do we rebuild it?
Yeah,
they're talking about ethnic cleansing is what they're talking about.
Peter, this was yours. This is how Donald Trump responded after hearing about how Joe Biden is venturing into Hollywood.
What do you think about Joe Biden signing on with the talent agency?
You got to be kidding. He signed on with the talent agency?
He does. He's got some entertainment agents now.
I think he's got bigger problems than that. I really do. I think he's got much bigger problems than that, but I wish him well.
Peter, that tickled you?
Joe Biden coming to blockbuster movies soon, like a remake of E.T. I think he could be cast for the main role in that, and various other movies.
There's some retro references.
Good stuff.
I noticed that.
Coming up next, it's Headliners presented by Leo Kirst. Good evening, Leo. What are you up to tonight?
We've got a cracking show tonight, so we've got Nick Dixon and Steve N. Allen on the panel. It's going to be really funny. And we're going to be talking about that Labour health minister who was fired for making jokes in WhatsApp. I mean, surely WhatsApp should be sacred. The people who should be fired are the people leaking the messages. Also, there's a crazy story about trans women, so that's females pretending to be men, getting fertility treatment on the NHS that's denied to real women. It's absolutely insane. And we've got Prince Harry isn't going to be deported.
Great stuff. Thank you, Leo. Thank you to my panel tonight, Linda, Paul, Peter and Charlotte. Thank you for the late arrival. Really appreciate your company. And you at home, hope you've had a good night. I'm back tomorrow from 9. Here's your weather. Good night.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. The cloud that we've had around throughout Saturday is going to be staying with us into Sunday as well, particularly across central areas of the UK, Northern Ireland, into parts of England and Wales. We'll continue to see outbreaks of rain and drizzle this evening and overnight. For the far north and south, though, we will start to see some clearer spells emerging, and underneath those clear skies, temperatures will drop off quite a touch, as low as -7 degrees Celsius for some rural parts of Scotland. This will be accompanied by some freezing fog patches, maybe also some icy stretches where surfaces are still wet, particularly if left untreated. Despite the very cold start to the day in Scotland, though, it is going to be a very sunny one here once the fog does eventually clear its way off, and we'll hold on to the sunshine right throughout the day. For Northern Ireland, then, into those central areas of England and Wales, it's going to be dull, drab and dreary, unfortunately. Further outbreaks of drizzle to contend with. But for the far south of England, we're starting the day off with something a touch brighter here. The cloud will tend to build from the east throughout the day, so we're going to be left with the fringes of parts of Pembrokeshire, West Wales and down towards Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly that will hold on to the sunshine the longest, whereas further rain pushes into southeastern England later on. With the cloud around, it is going to be another rather cold day, particularly once you factor in the easterly wind that's going to start building once again. So it's going to be feeling colder than these temperatures necessarily show on the chart. And that easterly wind is something that will hold on into the new working week as well. High pressure stays in control across Scandinavia, allowing that easterly wind to push its way in, and that is going to add a wind chill factor on top of the already cold conditions. Further showers pushing in from the North Sea with an extensive area of cloud. Those showers will be wintry over higher ground areas as well. It's a scenario that we're going to have to get used to because it is expected to stay very similar throughout the forthcoming week. Cloudy for the vast majority of us, and temperatures still slightly below average for the time of year. Bye-bye. Enjoy your evening.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Watching on demand. Good luck. GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Underestimate what you did, because to do it in their backyard as well, I bet they weren't happy about it, were they, Brad?
No, definitely not. Well, it makes it all the more sweeter. So they're usually pretty dominant in a two-man event, but four-man's usually where we can challenge them. And yeah, we managed to do it yesterday and put down 2 solid runs. And yeah.
So yeah, funding was a big issue for us in the last quad, but because of our results recently, we've picked up a lot more funding from UK Sport. So we're well funded now, and but yeah, the Bob is in the back of the van behind us, so we're driving it down to St Maritz as we speak. So yeah, it's, that's how it all works in the background in bobsleigh.
Brad, you're the pilot, correct? So you're up front.
Yeah.
Now, what happens? I always wonder, because I remember seeing John Noakes on. Do you remember John Noakes on Blue Peter when he fell out of the bob and he ended up showing the back of his backside on TV because he had a big scar on there? What? So you've got the brake man. You're at the front. So where are you then, Aaron? Are you what number are you?
So I'm number 3. Yeah.
Right. So what do you do there? Is it just a matter of it's the running power is what it's all about to get off to a good start, and then you can sit and enjoy the ride?
Yeah, that's it. So for number 2 and myself, number 3, it's all about getting that bob off the line and then just zipping it up to as high a speed as we can, basically.